video is going to be about the paper tools and Vsdc. I want to show you here, well, I actually have open here I have two videos open here. Let me scroll this up some. Do that like that and come over here to my fit the screen, which we learned about in the previous video. Zoom to fit. Okay, I dropped it down just a little bit. I have two videos open here. Layer 1 and layer 2 and layer 1. There's layer 2. I'm going to hide that so you can see layer 1. So I had two videos open. You see those red lines across there? Those are my grid right there. Okay. Now, before I get started, I want to show you something that's a quirk in this. I don't know if it's actually my program in my computer or whether it's actually Vsdc. First of all, let me show you what snap is. I'm going to turn one of these videos off. Okay, I have my grid on. Okay, what snap is you see all of these lines on my grid. Okay. Now, right now, if I move and I want to put my video on, line it up with a line, I kind of have to be careful and put it there. But if I hit snap to grid, which is right there, that button right there with the magnet on it, all I have to do is move within the area of it and it'll go right to it. And that sensitivity is, you can set the sensitivity of that in the settings. And that would be under paper settings and snap size. So the thing about it now, what I noticed is the snap size is not going to actually make it stronger or anything like that. What it actually does is it makes it a longer while before you can move the object. You notice how I had to drag my mouse across a little bit before it would move. So that's what that actually does. But it'll, when you click the snap the objects up there, it'll automatically snap to the lines on the grid. I mean, when you click the snap to grid, it'll automatically snap to your grid lines. You won't be able to stop in the middle or anything like that. And so you see, it automatically goes right to the line. And the same thing if you're moving it up and down. It'll automatically snap to a grid line. So you know what snap means. Okay, now let me turn that off. And this is the quirk that I wanted to show you. Over here, where it says snap to objects. You would think, at least I would think anyway, that snap to object would mean if I have another object up there, like that. Let me turn my grid off. You would think that it would mean that when I get near another object, it would snap it into place. So I'm going to turn on snap to grid and we're going to see what happens. When I move it over there, it doesn't really snap into place. Maybe it does a little bit, but it's nowhere near like what the other one is, The other one just takes it and moves it, but this, I guess it but the snap to grid is more obvious than this snap to object is. So, okay, let me go ahead and move on to what I what I want to explain to you about this here. Alright, let me turn all of this here stuff off. But we know what snap is. That's the important thing for right now. That we know what snap is. All of that stuff is off. Okay, let's come over here to alignment. First, let me put my object back in the middle. I'm put both of them back in the middle for now. But I'm going to turn one of them off. Alright. Okay. Show objects alignment. Now all of these things basically work with the in relation to the canvas, which is down underneath of here, which you cannot see because I have it white, the same color as the background. So what I'm going to do for you here is I'm going to turn my margin on, and I'll explain my margin to you a little bit later. That's the margin around my canvas. Alright, so now with show objects alignment, what that's going to show me is where when I move my video, when it lines up, or when I move my object, when it lines up with the borders of my canvas. So if I move it up, I didn't turn it on. And when I move it up and it lines up with it, you see that black line. You see a black line over there. That tells me that it's lined up with it. I move this one over here. The black line showed up down. Undo. Right there. Okay, a black line showed up down here when I did that to show that it was lined up. If I move this over here, it'll show up for that too. Now, also, if I have my other video up here, let me turn my other video back on, and I want to see when my two objects are lined up, it'll show me that. So if I move this down here, when I come down and I get there, you see the line appeared over there. It appeared over here. Let me get close. There it goes, shows when it lined up. So I click it, you see. And the same thing when I line that border up over there, it shows up over there. How wonderful it is. So that helps you line your stuff up. And the same thing happens with the grid. Let me put these back in the middle. Matter of fact, no, just let me turn one of them off. Alright. There's my grid. Now we're going to go to talking about the grid and the grid settings. Now, snap to grid, okay, which I think I showed you already, will make it snap right to the grid lines. I can't stop anywhere in the middle, like in any of the white or anything. The edges are always lined up with the grid, whichever way I'm moving it. I should point that out. So if I turn on snap to grid and I move my video to the right, it's always going to snap to that. If I move it up, it's always going to snap to that. It's always going to line up with the grid lines, no matter what I do. I cannot stop in the middle, in between, nothing like that. Okay, now, since we understand what that is, if it's over here, it's like that. But anyway, since we understand what that is, let me turn off my alignment. Let's look at the settings for the grid. Turn my grid on, hit my settings, come down here to paper settings, and right here we have our grid settings. And you notice I have mine set at 64 by 72. These are mathematical settings. They go from 0, I believe it goes down to 0, let me see. Scroll it down, I know it only goes down to 2. And it'll go all the way up to 128. Now, what you need to know, 1280, 64. What you need to remember here is if you want your grid to match your object or your project, you need to make it a multiple of the size of your object. That's why it's important to know what the size of your project is and the size of your objects, because all of these settings are invaluable to you. This is how you're going to line your stuff up, make sure you don't have white lines on the side and things like that. You have to know the right sizes of your stuff. So this is the size of my grid. So you see how I have my grid like that. All of my grid lines they match the size of my video. Now if I'd had, I'm gonna make it 120. No, I'm gonna make it something like 50, and show you what happens because it'll be out of proportion. I'm gonna change that to 50, and I'm gonna change the other one to 50, and you'll see what I mean. And you see how my grid lines are over here. They don't, they're not square like these are. And I mean, in some cases that's not really necessary, but if you want your, to be perfect, but if you want your stuff to be proportionate, then yeah, you'll want to do it right. So I said mine was 1280 by 720. So 1280, half of 1280 is 64. So I'm going to put that back at 64. And half of 720 is, half of 720 is 360. Well, I can't make it 360. But, I don't know, 72. There you go. And you see how all of my lines match up. Or I could have cut it in half of that. 72, half of 72 is 36. My lines would have been smaller, but they still would have, fit the box right. So, okay, so we know how to adjust the size of our grid lines. And I showed you snap to grid. Show margin. Okay, again, I showed that before in my demonstration there, but I'm going to show you it again. Okay, my canvas is white. Okay, and I did this for a reason because I usually use a black canvas. But I have a white one for the purpose of this video to show you the margin. So I have on show margin. If I click that button, it'll disappear. This shows me where my canvas is. If I want to line my video up with the margins of the canvas, I can click snap to margin, and when I move it, it'll go to the margin. Just like that there, it snapped right to it. And there's settings for the sensitivity of that also. But again, like I said, it doesn't make it any stronger or anything. It just makes it how long you have to drag this before it works. Just so that you, before it starts moving the object. Okay, I think I covered just about everything here. So object alignment, snap to objects, which really maybe it works, but if it does, it's not very sensitive. Show grid, snap to grid, snap to margin. No, show margin, sorry about that. Snap to margin, and of course the settings. Now, a little bit more I want to show you here. You can change the colors and stuff in these things. So I'm not gonna do them, but I'm gonna show you. As you can see up here, my background color. And you can change the background color. You can change the grid lines. This is for your grid lines. And this black right here, that's how I have my not my grid, my border. My border is black. Let's see. Now, detect grid color automatically. Let's do that and see, because I did that before and it doesn't really suit me. I guess it made the grid lines black, the same color as that. I don't particularly like it like that. I prefer it however I set it, which is the way I had it. I had it red. So open back up settings. There we go. So you can play with these here. You can play with these here and do what you need to do and set it up the way you want to. But remember, these mathematical things are, these numbers are mathematical. Oh, there is one other thing I do want to show you on the margins. Okay, let me drop this down. Okay, my margins are, well, first let me do this and change my lines back to red because I like my lines red. Okay, hide my grid. Okay, your margins. With your margins, right now these are exactly on the outside of my, let me do this. They're exactly on the outside of my canvas. That's the way my canvas is shaped. Now, these margins can be moved in. You see where this one is? This margin can be moved into somewhere along there or something like that. And this one can be moved over to here and that one in. Or even, you can even move them out. I'll show you where that is. Okay, that's in paper settings and margins. This is just where your margins are at. So if I move the left up to, I must move it up to 80, now move it up to 90. Move the right up to 90 pixels. And what's going to happen, if I'm correct, moving it up should make it bigger. And the same here with this. And by the way, you can type these numbers in. I just tend to do it like that because I'm lazy. Now, you see where these are now? Now when I click the OK, they should move out some. Oh, actually they moved in. Well, you see. But my canvas is still the same size, but it just shows my border like that. If I had a yellow canvas, then you would see that it went inside of the yellow canvas. So I'm going to go ahead back and set this back the way I had it. Paper settings, and set these back to 0. I'll go ahead and type them in this time. So 0, 0, 0, and I didn't do that one right. 0 and 0. And then it's back to the way it was. So, well, let's see, we've done alignment again. We've done snap to objects. We've done show grid. We've done snap to grid. We've done show margin. We've done snap to margin. And we went through settings. So that's it for this video, y'all. I hope you learned something from it. Play around with your settings, but remember, more than anything, when you're working with video editing, I keep saying Vsdc because that's what I'm working with. When you're working with any video editor, remember the size of your objects and your project, because that's what's going to make your videos or your objects show up correctly in your program. If you don't know what the sizes are, then you can't adjust the other things correctly, and you'll be fooling around, and you'll wind up with white lines on the side or on the bottom, or you just can't line something other up right because you don't have everything set up right. So I would say, when you're working with the program, set up all of your settings first. Your settings up here, when you start your project settings, know what your video size is. Some things can be just avoided by by just doing all of that stuff correctly. If you know, here's a tip. If you know when you start your project, if you know that your video, let me close this. If you know that your video or your project is going to be the same size of a particular video that you're working with, or a particular object that you're working with, then the easiest way to set your project the right way is use import content. Because when you use import content, it's going to start your video off, or your project off, the same size of the object. It'll automatically use that size. You see that says 1280 by 720. Well, I'm not going to use that one there this time because I used it the last time. Let me show you this here, and then I'm gonna stop. Okay, let's come over here and let me go into random sizes here. And this one here is 1280 by 720, of course. This one here is 952 by 700. Okay, so if I click that one and I open it, it's automatically going to open the video that size. You see? The height of 952 by 700. It automatically did it. So what's going to happen is it sized my canvas that size, and you know, I was going to say anything else I put in there is going to be that, but that's not necessarily true. But the project and the canvas is already set up to that. But the thing is, whatever you put in there, if you want it to look right and you want it to work out right, you need to make the numbers correspond with the size of your project. Otherwise, you're going to have issues. Okay, everybody, have a wonderful day. And we'll do another video later on to actually talk about the settings and the quirks you can have if you don't make it, the right way. So y'all have a wonderful day. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe. And we'll see you in the next video.